Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Jargon Buster. We've spoken to in our technical lead before, and today we're going to be talking about headless integrations. And I think that the headless discussion is coming up a lot these days. So, what is headless, and when is it beneficial?
Sure. So when you're talking about headless, it reminds me of the movie Sleepy Hollow.
Horseman!
From Tim Burton. So that was a great movie. So yes, it always reminds me of that. So the headless name, yeah. So that's interesting. So it reminds me of those horror movies. So it's to be honest, the name is a bit confusing. Like a people actually write to consider it as a jargon. So at some point, someone was deciding, hey, let's give it the name headless to make it more meaningful, more relatable to the people. But like the fact that we have to run a jargon buster on it means the intention wasn't successful. So I would like to draw a picture here for you to understand what it means, right? So imagine you want to build a shop or you want to build a CMS, right? There's a spectrum of integration, yeah? So on one end of it is the actual product you want to use, like Sitecore as a CMS or Shopify as an e-commerce product. And on the other end of it is like you building everything for yourself from scratch, right? But we can be consciously on any part of this spectrum, depending how much of the product we're using from that end user, like Shopify, like Sitecore, and how much of it we build ourselves, right? So there's always like that. There's not black and white. It's always there's a conscious decision someone makes to decide which part of the spectrum they are in.
With the headless component, it separates the content, doesn't it? The content sits in a separate layer, which means that the content can be used across an e-commerce platform. It can be used across CMS. It can be used in any application and technology. Is that what headless means?
That's right. Very well put. So let's imagine now the spectrum. Now you want to build a website, for example, a shop, for example, using Shopify, right? So if you're using all of the technologies from Shopify to build the listings, to build the checkout, to build the card layout, all of those stuff, if you rely integrated fully into this, you shouldn't be calling yourself headless. It's not headless. But if you're building part of your shop outside of the Shopify technologies, for example, you're hosting your website somewhere else, you're hosting your shop somewhere else, it's being called headless. So like assuming the shop itself and the front end of that shop is the head of your shop. So when it's outside and not fully integrated or fully embedded inside the Shopify, we call it headless.
So when is headless beneficial for a company? You've obviously mentioned that if you've got that level of complexity, probably headless is the way to go. Is there anything else that you'd need to consider for taking on a headless project?
Sure. So you mentioned complexity. I want to add to this. Suppose once you decide on the shop you want to build or the CMS you want to build or a website which uses CMS, like imagine what features you want to have. Like if there is animation, if there are videos, or a certain shiny features you want to add to it, or a specific or specialized calculations. For example, pointing. You might want to have like a reward system and calculate your points and rewards in a specific way, which is specialized to your website. Or if you have like a subscription pages or the way you want to interact with the users, then you want to rethink if you want to be fully embedded into like a Shopify, an e-commerce solution, or a CMS solution. Sure. You might want to go from scratch down the path of building your business or product in a headless way. That's one decider, of course, adding to the fact that it is most of the time easier and have the low cost to start with a fully embedded or fully integrated product. Like, for example, the technologies which Shopify gives you to build your shop gives you definitely a head start. And also the benefit of having the ecosystem around it, like the apps you can use for integration and building your product, gives you a head start. But also there's a hidden cost of you have to pay for those apps to begin with. And later on, if you decided to add more shiny features into that might be another cost as well.
Sure. So Headless gives you the opportunity to work with, say, Shopify for e-commerce. You could then potentially use Sitecore for your CMS. So, a lot of these providers would love to use their entire suite. So, Shopify has a lot of capability and would prefer that you do everything within Shopify. But what you just suggested there is that you might already have some component that you've built, you've spent a lot of money on it, you don't want to have to change that. So if you go down the headless route, it means you can then pick and choose the technology basket that you want to have.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I'll talk you through the story of one of the products we recently built. So that was a shop which we built based on the Shopify features. We knew from the beginning that the shop going to be a premium shop because it's going to have animations, it's going to have shiny features. So we started with the headless. But also later on the path, there was features which we didn't predict. For example, at some point, we needed a fairly sophisticated reward system with that particular shop. So then we realized the features in the Shopify, if we wanted to build it embedded, aren't enough, or in some cases aren't fit for the purpose because they would give us extra complexity. So we decided to build that from scratch in-house. And because it was a headless shop to begin with, it was easy for us to build it from scratch, integrate with. So the other example of that is the subscription model. So Shopify is a bit new in terms of building subscriptions and providing a feature for subscriptions. When I say subscriptions, like users might want to subscribe to specific features or products for a while and then pay a monthly fee for that product regularly, right? So we decided to, okay, maybe the Shopify feature for subscription, as it's new, might not be fit for purpose. So we decided to use a totally new product for the subscription, which was Stripe. So yeah, so that's the story.
Fantastic. Well, look, we've reached the end of our 8-minute segment, and there are lots of different aspects that we can continue to discuss in future Jargon Busters. But thanks again for your time, Armin. It's been great. I've learned something as well. So I hope that our viewers have also.
No problem. Pleasure.
Thanks, mate.